War and Peace. All right. Gonna go on with my autobiography. I'm gonna go way back in time in Toronto. It's either 1977 or 1978. I can't really remember. Maybe it was 77. I wanted to work, but my friend Tom was on unemployment, which he loved because he preferred that to work. I mean, if you're working at minimum wage, I suppose unemployment, it's a way of getting over on the system. I felt profoundly guilty for two things. I was able bodied and I was an illegal alien. But he talked me into it. I was a young kid and I was kind of weak minded. He said, "You'll make more money, you'll get more benefits for Tom and for the rent if you go on welfare." And it was just a health care card or something. Uh, I guess they just implemented a Medicare card. It wasn't anything with a picture on it. So I didn't get on. And boy, was he mad. I think I remember he was being really mad. I guess we have to go back to work. I know you're a sucker. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. We have plenty of time for drinking. And I thought, oh, I don't know. Was it like 18? I just developed arthritis really bad, but something in me knew that just sitting around doing nothing was going to get me into a lot of trouble. And even though I was making minimum wage and getting really dirty in the process, there was a certain honor in work. Now, in California, since I was a citizen and I had an ID and everything, I got beat up one time and I just went into the emergency and they gave me a Medicaid card. Then I went over to welfare and they wanted to call my family and I was too embarrassed. So what did I do? I guess I tried to get work. That was tried to get work too because they made it so difficult. Did I get? It's really easy to get food stamps. It was easy to get food stamps back then, and we get oranges and candy bars, and then I guess we'd go buy um, beer. Let's just be honest. This was 81 years ago. I think they've tightened things up since then. There were no work requirements. If you were hungry, you got food. Welfare was another matter. They kind of made it kind of difficult. And then I went in later and I got on, and uh, I was applying for disability, and they said, "Now, if you can't work while you're applying for disability, Mr. Bill." And I was having trouble holding jobs down, and I was just getting more and more depressed. I don't think drugs were helping, but and I was couldn't keep myself clean because I was homeless. And they said, "Well, you're able to work." And so I called some welfare agency, and I called Harry Britt, who was a Alexa. How old is Harry Britt?
This might answer your question. Harry Britt died on June 24th, 2020 at the age of 82.
Alexa, who was Harry Britt?
Deborah Ann Harry is an American singer, songwriter, and actress, best known as the lead vocalist of the band Blondie. 4 of her songs with the band reached No. 1 on the U.S. charts between 1979 and 1981. Born in Miami, Florida, Harry was adopted as an infant and raised in Hawthorne, New Jersey.
Alexa, who was Harry Britt? Hmm.
Harry Britt was an American politician and gay rights activist. Born in Texas, he worked as a Methodist pastor in Chicago as a young man and later moved to San Francisco.
I knew the guy. He's also a postman, but he helped me get on welfare. I was screaming and yelling, and what was it? They canceled. They were going to cancel mental health, and I was wandering around the capital of Sacramento. I was. Was I just upset? Was I entitled? I was really distressed. I felt that I had these panic attacks. Could I have worked? If I could find work, but it was like I went around to all the union places and they wouldn't let you in. And who's going to hire a guy that's filthy like that? Besides, nobody I knew in that abandoned building was working. They were all on SSI, which I eventually got on. I went back to work, um, not completely in the 90s, and eventually I paid enough into Social Security that I got that. I kept trying to reintegrate myself into the labor market, but I'd always get sick. One time I ended up in a mental hospital. But I have to say, I tried. The reason I wanted to get on it was so I could get a college education and go to law school, and then I figured it would be easier because it was harder for me to work and go to school. I got confused. I really did. I think they bought it because I seemed sincere, and I seemed sincere because I was. Whether or not there was actually anything wrong with me, I really believe that there was. That's what my shrink told everybody. He says, I don't know if there's anything wrong with him, but he really, really believes there is, and it causes him a tremendous amount of stress. So I guess there is, because he's just convinced that he's got brain tumors, or I don't know if you call it chronic hypochondria, but I guess so. But I did work. I did work in market research. I worked at the Public Research Institute with Richard De Leon. I worked at I worked at Time Life Books. I worked at Parallax. I worked at Mervyn Field. I worked at Freeman Sullivan. I worked at a lot of market research firms. So that was me. That was, I guess, the main thing I did. And then off the books, I worked for some political consultancy. I worked for Voter Revolt, and I'm not gonna the name that will not be mentioned. There was a campaign consultant I worked for, and I probably shouldn't talk about it, so I won't. For the most part, it was political consultancy we did, but we did some other nefarious things, but we're not going to talk about that because I'm still afraid of death. I'm still afraid of a painful death. Let's just put it that way. We're going to talk about my guns. I have a master's degree in political science. I did go to law school. You don't know my real name, but oh, this is going up on the Bill Sands account, so that's my. As far as you're concerned, that's my real name. Sands is a family name, as is Zenz. That is a family name. Although my birth certificate, when I went to look for it, my mother's maiden name was Sanos. So I started using that for a time too. I was always told that my mother's maiden name was Sands or Zenz. So many versions of that name that I've used. Zenz, Sanos, Sands. I don't know why it says Sanos on my birth certificate, but it does. It's probably a typo. So I went by Liam Sanos for a while. Willem van der Vreem means William the Strange. Another family name, well, that was in the family was Van de Hel, which is, I guess, from the hill, Van de Hel. But there's a story about the Dutch name. It was one of these names that the reason I changed it was, and I changed it to a name everybody knows. I waited till my dad died because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. But the name was a name that could be, oh God, it just drove me crazy. And I lived in San Francisco, so it was like they called me lesbian woman. But for some reason, it bothered me. It was a name that was easily mispronounced and very ethnic, and people made fun of. So, and Sands was, and I worked for an Irish guy once, and he said, "Your name sounds kind of Jewish." And I says, "No, it's Protestant, it's Dutch." He says, "Oh, that's much worse. Being a Jew, you would have gotten away with that. Ireland's 32, but a Dutch Protestant." He says, boy, oh, there's no way you're getting out of there. Just give us another name." He says, "Well, my mother's maiden name is." He says, "Oh, Sans, you're Irish." And I go, "No, it's Zenz, it's German." He says, "Ah, well, it sounds Irish. We'll call you Billy Sans. That sounds like a good IRA name. So for a long time, everybody knew me as Billy Sands. I mean, even members of my family who weren't quite sure why I liked the name so much, but it was a family name, so they knew I was touchy about that. I'd been picked on in junior high school because the first name was basically my first name was basically Penis Man or Lesbian Man, and oh, I couldn't stand that. I could not stand years and years of being made. Why did that bother me? But it did. It did. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. So I legally became William Sands. That's who I am. And that's what my ID says. Well, I've got several IDs, but you don't need to see them. Yeah, I mean that was kind of a sign that there was something wrong. I think the fact that a name, my name would upset me so much that I would change it to something so bland. I always liked the last name Sands, though. I knew a lot of Irish people, and Bobby Sands was a IRA terrorist. I didn't consider him a terrorist. The people I knew didn't consider him a terrorist, and I still don't consider him a terrorist. It's like that whole argument with his. I'll be honest with you. Do I think Hamas are terrorists? I'm going to be careful. But can I just be honest? I think they are. I think Hamas would qualify as a terrorist. They really, what they did was, even though I question the rapes, and I'll tell you why, because it just sounds made up. Because I'll tell you why. The decapitated babies, that was debunked. And I'll tell you how we know that the decapitated babies were not Hamas. The IDF, which is genuinely a terrorist organization as far as I'm concerned. It's as bad as the Gestapo or anything like that. I don't have any great love for either of them, but they're just slaughtering innocent people. And they use rape and torture of Palestinian women as a weapon. And nobody ever talks about that. Evidently, that's justified because Jews are superior. They're superior to Arabs, which are just cockroaches. It's just so ironic to me, and it makes me angry. They're dehumanizing Arabs in the same way that they were dehumanized in World War II because they were associated with communism and killing Christ and being greedy and cheating people. All the things, being rodents, being deceptive, whatever. Leon Trotsky killed as many people as Hitler. I hate to say that, but it's probably true. But he was the good guy. Lenin started that whole revolution. It's killed tens of millions of people. Which the only reason I mention that is to bring up the point of collective punishment. If you want to if you think that Palestinians need to be collectively punished, then you've basically justified the Holocaust because that was Hitler's argument that all Jews had to pay for the crimes of other Jews. And creating communism was definitely, as some people perceived that Jews were responsible for that. You can look at that as a horrible crime or a mistake. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was, just a necessary phase in history. I mean, the Catholic Church has probably killed as many people as communists, I guess, Protestant Christianity. I mean, 30 Years' War, was it? 6-Day War. The 30 Years' War. When the Germans fight, they don't fight for 6 days, they fight for 30 years. That killed, I think that killed, was it 1/3 or 1/4 of the population in Germany in famine and disease? And that was just fighting over, which brand of Christianity You want like 6 million people? Was it 6 million people? I think it was at least 6 million people that died fighting during, which was basically the Protestant Reformation. And then there were the wars of religion in France. So I mean, there are no good guys if you want to look at it that way. Every ideology, every religion has been responsible for some sort of slaughter at some time. They just have. It's like it's not any particular religion or people. We're just all pretty vicious to each other. It's like that scene in 2001: Space Odyssey where the two tribes of monkeys are fighting over a watering hole. Now, do I consider Hamas a bunch of heroes? No. Did I consider the Irish Republican Army heroes? I kind of did. That was because I was close up to them. It was very romantic or whatever. And maybe I shouldn't have. But the British were in Ireland, and they shouldn't have been for 7 centuries. I think the Irish Republican Army was completely justified in what they did. The English still have no business in Northern Ireland. And I'm a Protestant, or I was. Although, again, the Sands were Catholics. If you go back a century, my grandfather was a Roman Catholic. The only reason he became a Presbyterian was because that's where all the blondes were. And being French, he cherchait la femme. That's funny as hell. He married a very blonde woman and a very attractive woman too. And he was a really charming guy. I could see how that he could get a good looking woman because he was smart and he was charming. He was good natured. Grandpa Sands, miss him. He was a good. How such nice people could produce such a rotten, annoying gadfly as me, I don't know. But I guess every family has someone like me. They just do. Should the state of Israel exist? It does. It does. Should France exist? I don't know. I like the French. They're snotty and arrogant. I'm sure plenty of people hate them, but that would be self-hatred because I've just determined that that's where my DNA is like a roulette wheel, and mine spun. It wasn't German DNA that came up with me because my hair is so curly. It wasn't the Dutch, although I think there are some qualities like I love Gouda cheese. It was the French. I have French qualities. I look French. I definitely don't have blonde hair and blue eyes. I feel bad for the people of Gaza. Now, are the Arabs good guys? If they saints? Well, the Irish are good. The Irish are really nice people, and I'm not even Irish, but they are nice people. I really don't know a lot about Palestinians, but I had a Palestinian grocer who was a Roman. The ones I knew were Roman Catholic. The Palestinians I knew were Roman Catholic because the Irish are Roman Catholic, and yeah, that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. But we knew each other, and these were decent people. There was nothing wrong with them, and they loved God and they loved Jesus, and they just didn't want their land being taken from them. So that's where my sympathy comes from. Knowing having friends that were Palestinian grocers and realize these people weren't cockroaches, they weren't animals, they were decent, hardworking people, they were business people, and they were spread all over the world because someone took their land. The Jews were victims, and then they made the Palestinians victims. It's just like it's perpetual, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Jewish people have New York. It's a terrible thing to say, but that's why I look at it. They run New York. That's their state. I mean, New Jersey, that's the Italians, but Long Island, and I'm not saying the Jews run New York. Let them have New York. I think there'd be less problems if they all just moved to New York. They're there anyways, and we can put up with them better than the Muslims. Look, it's just like if we had a Islamic State form in Dearborn, Michigan, everybody would want to kick them out. There would be war because this is the United States. It's a Christian nation or a secular / Protestant culture, and we would not want Dearborn stand. We would not want an Islamic State being formed in upper Michigan or whatever, wherever Dearborn is. Alexa, is Dearborn in Upper or Lower Michigan?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, it is in the Lower Peninsula.
All right, it's not up there with those weird Dutch people, but Alexa, what's the population of Dearborn?
According to the 2020 U.S. Census, the population of Dearborn is 110,000 people, which is an 11.8% increase over the 2010 U.S. Census.
Because that whole Israel thing is going to I'm telling you, it's going to cause a war. It's going to cause a war, a world war. But this is the thing: the Jews aren't going to give that land up. I think I'm less of an atheist now. I'm not even an agnostic. I took up Buddhism, but I think they're residual. It's like Mark Twain said, "I don't believe there's a hell, but with my luck, there probably is one." Yeah, I think that's the way the world is going to end for some weird reason, and I'd hate to see that. But the Jews want the land, and the Muslims want the land, and there's going to be some sort of horrible conflagration. And how that's going to translate, if there's really a God, or is it going to be God or aliens, or how did those people all those years ago know about that? It's like, as someone that's got sort of a, maybe not a Buddhist, but a Buddhist outlook, it's like, this is all cosmic, man. Sometimes our souls just know things. And maybe we knew that this was, we were like, the Germans, the Vikings had that myth of Ragnarok, but all sorts of cultures have flood myths and end of the world myths. The Jews aren't going to give that land up, but I'm telling you, it just breaks my heart to see those kids being slaughtered, and then it makes me angry when they said, "Oh, they raped our women and they beheaded us." The IDF, Google the Hannibal Directive. Most of the deaths on October. Alexa, what is October 7th? Or is it October 6th?
Monday, October 7th, 2024 is in 3 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days.
Alexa, what happened on October 7th?
While there are no national holidays in the United States on October 7th, it is Child Health Day, World Habitat Day, and Francis Xavier Cabrini.
Wasn't there something that happened on October 7th? October 7th is now like 9/11, right? Or was I out in the sun too much today? Come on, you stupid computer. Um, the IDF killed a lot of their own hostages. They killed their own people to prevent them from being taken hostage. And a lot of those decapitated babies were little children that were blown to pieces by the IDF. I'm sorry, you don't want to hear that, but it's true. And decades ahead from now, if this is still around, you won't be calling me a liar or an anti-Semite. You'll say, well, that was basically true. Maybe I'm an anti-Semite for just stating what is so patently obvious to so many people. It's just the truth. Now, the whole rape thing, I don't know. But I do know one thing. The IDF uses rape as a weapon. They torture and they rape Palestinian women. And nobody talks about it. But it's like, oh, well, they're just animals. I'm sick of hearing these excuses. If it was wrong for the Germans and the Nazis to do these horrible things, it's wrong for you. There's no justification for this. From Murder and Laramie. October 7th, Israel. Gaza. Yeah, you'd think it'd be like the big police say body found near. Okay. Israel and Hamas have both committed war crimes since October 7th. Yeah, but I blame Israel more because it's a highly technological society, and they're always it's always, oh, our moral superiority, support Israel because we're the chosen people and we're morally superior. And I bought into that. I was, because I'm German. It's like for years I felt guilty, and people tried to make me feel guilty because of the Holocaust when nobody in my family had anything to do with it. There were people in my family that actually hid Jews, and I think it's kind of like a con. I think Jewish people use it as a really. I think you use it if you're listening to me. You know that it's true. You use it as a damn con, a damn con to make people feel guilty. And then this happens. I mean, you've been doing shit like this in Israel for years, but this is just an atrocity. And so, this is what I say, and I just say it. I mean it. I don't think that Jewish people have any right to make German people feel guilty. Because if Germans are collectively guilty, then so are you. So are you. For what if you support Israel? If you support Israel, you're collectively responsible for all the atrocity, all these horrible, horrible. What the hell? Post. Okay, that worked. That worked. Let's put it up here and see what happens. That's the whole. That's the stupidest meme. I think it's some leftist trying to be clever. The extreme left and the extreme right. It's just the hell with them both. Logic seems to be in the center. It's like Deng said it. It doesn't matter if the cat is white or black. If the cat catches mice, it's a good cat. It doesn't matter what color that what ideal. It doesn't matter if the cat is black or white. As long as the cat catches mice, it's a good cat. All right, enough of this. So, the Buddhism's trying to diffuse the anger. And why I should get angry about something I have nothing to do with, other than the fact that we have to pay for it, and we've got to feel guilty, and we've got to feel deference, and it's an infringement on our civil liberties. We're not allowed to criticize. It's tied into this politically correct crap, and I realize now how dangerous it was for me to go along with it, and who was behind it. And now it's come home to bite people in the ass, just like communism did. The revolution ate its young. This is my belief. I don't care what religion you are, as long as you respect other religions and you're peaceful and you're not a nationalist. I don't like nationalism because nationalism, well, except the Irish nationalists, for some reason, because they were the underdog, and the French nationalism, my own people, the French, I like that. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. But other than a few exceptions, most nationalism is very fascistic. Even American nationalism, although I don't think it's anywhere near the worst, we're just kind of jingoistic. We're just very. It's just annoying because it can be taken to a childish and dangerous extreme. I was talking to somebody today, and it was like America, America. It's like, well, maybe I should feel that way, but I don't. I really don't. I mean, okay, America's is a great place to live. I don't hate America because there's no place better. And that's not saying that America is great. It's saying the rest of the world is a shitstorm of misery. And we should feel lucky that we're in a much less bad place. America used to be a great place. It used to be the greatest country in the world. Now it's got problems. It's very unequal. It's very divided. And it's becoming polarized. And nobody's coming together anymore. And does that make us evil? I think that just makes us sad. Not even sad. I worry. But this country shouldn't be considered a bad place. When you have to look at the rest, look at Europe. Europe's going right wing. I mean, all those countries, those lovely little welfare states, they're all turning into ethno states, which they should have stayed. Immigration into Europe was a stupid idea. Immigration didn't fit all those different states. They were fine when they were homogeneous. But now it's been a disaster. It's been nothing but bad news for Europe to have all those immigrants come in and cause the terrorism and the strife and the violence. And a lot of it's caused by the disruption in the Middle East. Well, I mean, there's global warming too, but all the wars that Israel caused. I mean, I hate to say it, but all the wars Israel's keeping the peace in the Middle East. No, they're not. The reason you've got problems in the Middle East now is mainly because of Israel. They're a thorn. They're not a good ally. They're a liability. You want to know what I think? Just Google John Mearsheimer and listen to him. He's a conservative. People accuse him of being an anti-Semite. I don't think he is. He's just trying to be objective. He's another German. It's like I'm tired of feeling guilty because it's like everybody's guilty of this shit. And what the Jews are doing, or what the Zionists, because not all this is another thing that I accept. It sounds politically correct. There are a lot of Jews that don't feel any affinity with Israel. Very religious Jews who think that the state of Israel is a heresy, that it was basically the Protestant idea, or atheists and Marxists wanted a homeland. That the Bible says that Jews are forbidden the state until the Messiah comes. And there are other secular Jews that just are averse to nationalism the same way that I'm. Believe it or not, I'm just going to say it. If you want to believe it or not, I'm averse to Nazism. It's sickening. Nazism is definitely worse than communism, simply because communism is basically the road to hell is paved with good. It's a nice sounding idea that's a disaster because it defies human nature, at least human nature as it exists now. We might evolve, probably won't. Nazism is just evil, and you can be proud to be German, but doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be a Nazi. I think Zionism has developed into a malignancy like Nazism is. I don't want to be associated with the Nazis, and there's a lot of Jewish people that don't want to be associated with Zionism. And I've got nothing against you. I don't hate you. If I say things that offend you, I'm really sorry because when I say Jews, I apologize for that. That's me. I'm not a good person, or so maybe I'm not a good person. Maybe I'm just sloppy in the way I talk. I'm sloppy in the way I think, and I'm inconsiderate. But I think it's the pride in the state of Israel is kind of. It just feels so much like when Germans start talking about how Hitler was justified because they were fighting communism, and the Germans are better than everybody else, and they were destined to rule the world. It just reminds me too much of what I've heard from German people, some in my family even, who just think that they're better than everybody else, that they're a master race, they're superior to everybody else, and they can do anything they want to anybody because nobody else matters. And I get the same feeling from Zionists. I'm a Jew. Only Jews are important. We can do anything. We can cheat. We can bleed millions and billions of dollars out of the American economy. Start all these wars because we're important and you're not. Screw you. Like a Bernie Madoff side of ideal, or Jeffrey Epstein money wasn't enough for him. He had to rape little kids. But you'll find people like Trump. Trump's a waspy version of that. You can find that in any culture. It's just not one people that are evil. We all are. But it's nationalism that does that to people. And they're nationalistic people in every ethnic group. They're like Christian nationalism. They call it National Socialism because socialism was a popular idea back then, for better or worse, and they wanted to co-opt it. Christianity's still big in the United States. For an industrial advanced nation, we're still very religious compared to other nations. So Christianity's a popular idea to co-opt onto nationalism. And they are vile people. They're not pleasant people. So yeah. What do I even talk about this for? So I guess it's my business because we're pay- the thing that I would like to see is just no more aid for Israel. If they're gonna be killing people down there and causing so much trouble, that let them do it on their own dollar. That you know what? If you don't want to leave, that's fine. But don't expect me to pay for it, or don't expect the American people to pay for it because we don't support it. I don't. I think it's horrible. You do whatever you want to do. I won't do anything against you, but I'm sick and tired of being forced to give money, not to humanitarian, but so that you can drop bombs on little babies and blow Palestinian kids up. And the thing is, this is true. They know this, that the IDF has a concerted policy of using rape as a weapon against Palestinians and against Palestinian women. And so every time I hear about how Jewish women were raped by um, Hamas, it really angers me because I know the truth, and a lot of people, other people know the truth, that the IDF has been doing that in their dungeons for years, and nobody gets to say anything about it. Oh yeah, okay, that's great. That's a funny one. All right, but we'll ignore that. Let's see what we did here. Did I? All right, I already put that up. Okay, okay, okay. Forgetting what I'm doing. So, anyways, this is stupid. Criticizing Israel and yeah. So getting on welfare in Toronto couldn't do it. Didn't have the right paperwork. Getting on welfare in San Francisco in 1981, Harry Britt helped me, and he helped me. He helped him and I helped change Medicaid because they were going to save money. They were going to cut mental health out of Medicaid, which would have just I would have ended up on the streets and dead. So he helped me with that too. So I'm a pretty famous. If you get help from the government for mental health, you can thank me for that if you're in California because they were going to cut that out, and I helped save that by wandering the halls with a very angry and what was his name Richard Stitman. This is back when we had typewriters type something up. Richard Stitman. I bet you he's dead. He has to be dead. All the weird people. I should do something on Richard Stitman. He was a weird guy. But the thing is, if you pay enough money into Social Security by working, they'll take it. Because I remember when they told me, we're taking you off SSI. You're not going to be. I thought, that's it. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. I can't hold regular jobs down because I never could. I'm just going to end up dead or dependent on my family. And then in a heartbeat, they said, you're no longer on SSI, you're on Social Security because you paid a lot of money into the system. And my income went from $600 a month to like 900. And that's, God, how did I ever live on any of that? I don't know how I did. All those years. So now maybe this autobiography, it's not going to be um, a great book. But I remember that was the thing, sitting in that stupid welfare office. It was like being in prison. It's like one of the most horrible places, just waiting in a welfare office. It's humiliating. People smell. I remember this old woman who was she was like ranting to herself. She didn't know where she was. Well, she knew she was, I think she somehow managed to find the welfare office, and no one was helping her. And basically, the job of the social services is to weed you out. You know, and there was that one guy that tried to create workfare, which wasn't bad, I guess, but I had bad knees. See, if you think I'm fake, I'm just gonna. If you want to take my word for it, I was not in good health then. I'm in much worse health now. And if I would have kept working like I did in Canada, I would have. I just couldn't find steady work, and I was surrounded by people that were very anti-work. That work was a form of slavery. Being lazy was a human right, and if you could find most of the people I knew on SSI by the 90s had gone back to work because they said, look, people don't accept this anymore, and if you can find work, get it, because this is, unless you're like really messed up, this whole program's over with. And I desperately tried to get. They were nice though. They kept me on because I couldn't work regularly. As you can tell, maybe I'm a little addled. Maybe I don't seem addled, but oh, it's the end of my life. What do I care? But that's probably one of the things that kept me from getting jobs. Is I always held very unpopular opinions. I was very left wing on. I was like a socialistic. I could be kind of bigoted. I wasn't homophobic for obvious reasons, but yeah, I think someone told me there was like a closet race. I have to work on that. Racism is bad. Anti-Semitism is bad, and I think we all are a little bit racist, and we have to fight it. And we let our emotions get the best of it. It's like during World War II, people called Japanese Japs, and there was a lot of racism towards the Japanese because of Pearl Harbor and the death, atrocities the Japanese government was committing. And in Germany, there was a lot of anti-German feeling because of Hitler, obviously. But the reason why it wasn't that great was it's like 20% of the American population is at least partly of German ethnicity. So we look like everybody else, and how the hell are you going to round up 20% of the population? Just forget it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I think a lot of the anti-Semitism now, it was bad before, but a lot of it is because people are equating when they see all those dead babies in Gaza and hear that people are starving to death. And then there's rumors that the IDF, and these aren't rumors, it's really true. The IDF came in, and two-thirds of the casualties um, in that rave or whatever that went on in Israel when the Hamas invaded that rave or whatever the hell that was, that rock concert or whatever the hell was going on. At least the majority of them was when the IDF finally showed up and just started shooting people because they didn't want hostages to be taken. So there you go. That's the truth of it, and that'll probably be suppressed. But years from now, it's going to be exposed. Like when the Holocaust was happening, even Jewish people didn't believe it was happening. They thought it was just like crazy propaganda. And there's still people that believe it didn't happen. But when Eisenhower went into the camps, he said, I want you to film everything because I know there's going to be some son of a bitch that just said that this never happened. And Eisenhower also said there was only one time in his life that he was ashamed to be of German heritage, and that was when he went into those concentration camps and saw the horrible, horrible things that the Nazis had done. And it was a very shameful thing. But I'll tell you another thing what's shameful. It's what Israel's doing in Gaza right now. That's not war. That's not fighting terrorism. That's slaughtering unarmed people, okay? And there have been credible, I mean, it's not even credible. It's just a fact. They've caught them red-handed. They've caught the IDF molesting women and humiliating human beings and desecrating corpses. They found mass graves full of people that were just executed. How you can justify that, I don't know. And the whole world is watching, and the whole world knows about it. And of course, that's going to fan the flames of anti-Semitism. And if you don't want people to be anti-Semitic, you've got to figure out some way to stop that. It's like why people are anti-American, because of the segregated South, because we wiped out the Native Americans. There's our Jews are chosen. Jews aren't any better or any worse than anybody else. We all have atrocities on our hands. Every ethnicity, every race, you can point to somewhere in their history where they did really terrible things. But this is happening now, and we can do something about it. Will we? No, I shouldn't. But I can't help. I can't help but talk about it. even though I'm supposed to be talking about applying for welfare in 1981. That doesn't work out too well. But that's how long ago it was. It was a, I don't know how hard, I wouldn't have no idea how to even, where to even go to apply for welfare now. The only reason I know is because someone basically said, "This is where the office is. We'll take you in there," so that because I wasn't contributing anything to the little tribe, food stamps or rent. I was just kind of living off other welfare recipients, and they said, "If you are," I tried to get a job. If you aren't going to get a job, at least get on welfare, because pull your own weight. That was pulling your own weight, applying for welfare. That was their idea of you pulling your own weight. Because there was one guy, Murray. What was his last name? He was too lazy to apply for welfare. He'd just sleep all day, and he couldn't be bothered. It was too much hard work to get on welfare. I don't know if that was him or he just because he was from the South. He just was resistant to the idea of applying for welfare and food stamps. I think he got food stamps, but he just couldn't. He couldn't get up in the morning to go get on welfare. I remember that. It was like he says, "Well, you think you're lazy, Bill, but you're not. Look at poor Murray. He's a good guy, but he's actually I actually knew a guy that was too lazy to apply for welfare. It was too hard. He slept all day. He was like little Abner, and he just couldn't. He just I'll go tomorrow. I think eventually he did sign up for something, but I remember it was like pulling teeth, and everybody had this. He was a great guitar player, though. That was the thing, though. That was his one. That's why people kept him around. He had that skill. I think Peppermint Motorcycle Patty took him to Hawaii and molested him because she was older. Poor Murray. I don't think he minded. She had these huge tits. He had this little smirk on his face. He says, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine. She ain't mistreating me. She ain't doing nothing to me. I don't mind. I don't want done to me." It was the '80s. Things were weird. Things are always weird. She wasn't a bad person, Motorcycle Patty. She was just lonely. And she was a musician. She liked the fact that he could play guitar. I think finally she got tired of him and dumped him. Poor guy ended up wandering. I saw him again. He became a heroin. He another one became a heroin addict. It was just like all of a sudden he had a back problem. He's probably dead. Murray, if you're watching, I wish you the best. And I'm sorry I told the story about you being too lazy to go on welfare, but I remember you were. You'd sleep all day and you just couldn't be bothered to get on welfare. SSI was a trip too because they would not. The first time around, no, everybody got denied because even if you were really sick, very very few people got approved the first time unless you were really there was something really 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 wrong with you. Like I knew a girl. Was her name Karen Verba? I wonder if she's still alive. Probably shouldn't. Is that a real name? I think I remembered her real name. I probably shouldn't. How old would she be? Yeah, she's in her 60s. Wonder what happened to poor Colin. She walked right out of a mental hospital and got an SSI, but she'd been locked up in a mental hospital for 6 months. Poor kid. Poor kid. She was just. Someone should have been watching her, and nobody was. I hope she's okay. She probably isn't. Poor Karen. She was a smart girl too. In high school, it's just like that's how schizophrenia works, I guess. I know a lot of people that were schizophrenic. They were fine one minute, and in eighth grade they were fine. By the time they were in 12th grade, they were schizophrenic. I applied and was denied. And they said, "Don't worry, they deny everybody once." But it only took me 8 months. And they told me that was very exceptional. They say they don't use. There was one guy I knew. He'd been up trying to get on SSI for 3 years. He had to hire a lawyer. And he says, "What's your secret?" And I says, "I think my secret might be that I'm really crazy." He says, with you, it's obvious that you don't want to work, dude. I mean, you make these things up like you grew up near a chemical plant. You're a little odd. You're a little off. I'm not saying that you're not disabled, but what I'm telling you is you just give off kind of malingering vibes. He says, "Well, what about you?" And I says, "Oh, I feel that. I feel tremendously guilty. But for some reason, when you go in and apply my sincerity, it like help, help! I've got worms in my brain. It's like some people you could tell they were acting. They they rub around in the dirt and they act crazy. And they told me, Bill, you were either an Academy Award winner, maybe you are, maybe you're just a great actor, but you come off at least at appropriate times. And if you know if you interact with you long enough, you seem normal most of the time. But if you hang around with you long enough, you realize that there's really something a little off. You're severely paranoid. You can be it can lead to violence and not like aggressive violence, but you feel threatened. One time I was in a coffee house banging my head on the table, trying to convince somebody that I was mentally ill, and they go, all right, you know what? Stop banging your head on the table. I know you're that's going beyond faking it. I think there's really something wrong with it. Stop banging your head on the table. All right, I accept that you're crazy. You deserve your SSI. Somebody get a napkin. I think he's bleeding. I felt bad, and I always wanted to improve myself. I always did. I went to school. I even worked for the Public Research Institute. I always tried to do something constructive. I quit doing drugs. I even tried to quit smoking. I quit drinking. My shrink used to tell me, you're either working or going to school. I don't want you just sitting around smoking some drug. He says, because first of all, that's not what SSI is for. And second of all, that's no good for you. And everybody explained to me what a death check was. People that were on SSI used to be in mental hospitals. He said, if this would have been 20 or 30 years ago, instead of putting you on SSI, they would have put you in a mental hospital. And when they let these people out, they gave them a check because it was cheaper to give them a check than it was to keep them locked up. Save money that way. And they call them death checks because the average life expectancy of an SSI recipient at the time, or maybe even now, is like 3 years. You give somebody just enough money, and a lot of SSI recipients are homeless, to pay the rent and do drugs. And that's what they do. They self-medicate and then they're dead. And that saves money too because you don't have someone on long term. I've been on. I'm not on SSI anymore, but and this is another thing. In 2007, they told me it worried me again. We reviewed your case and we decided that you were not disabled as of 1981. I thought that's great. I owe money. This is from talking to all your doctors and everything like that, we determined that you've been schizoaffective or you've been psychotic or delusional since 1978. It's obvious that when you dropped out of school that you had some sort of schizophrenic break, and you have not been in this realm of reality with the rest of us. So instead of like owing them money, they gave me $8,000, which I promptly ran. I went to Ireland because I wanted to see Dublin, but that's what I did. I went off to on St. Patrick's Day, the St. James Gate Brewery. But instead of owing them money, it's like every time it was like, we're so sorry. We should have. You were wandering around the streets of America and Canada, and then when I told them the Canadian story, they said, "What do you think? You're a Vietnam vet? What the hell were you doing up there?" I don't know. Political statement? Who knows? I'm there's something a little off up here. I mean, I've got doctors and medical, really respectable, smart, upper middle class, almost above upper middle class people. My parents too were very middle class, upper middle class people, had good jobs, corporate executives. And then there's me. I can't hold a job down at some marginal telephone market research. There was obviously something wrong. I hold a job for a couple weeks and then I couldn't do it anymore. And maybe that's why, give me some slack, why I've misperceived reality the way I do. So give me a little compassion, because I'm obviously not a credible source. Even I don't think I'm a credible source. maybe I'm delusional, but I look at the. I mean, I try to be, Israel's a. So what if it's democracy? Democracy. Look what we did in Vietnam. Big deal. We're democracy. We committed democracies commit atrocities. There's just something wrong. Gaza's a prison. There was John Mearsheimer said this. Hamas was a prison break. They were trying to get out of prison. That's all that was. They were trying to make a break from prison. Is basically what they were doing. And now they've just decided, well, we want that land, and we're just going to wipe all the Palestinians out. That is medieval. And the fact that the world's sitting back and allowing Israel to do that is just wrong. And if you're a Zionist, I'm not going to say Jewish, because there are a lot of Jewish people that feel terrible about this. They're very critical of Israel. And there's some that don't give a shit about it. They feel about the same way about Israel I feel about Germany. Fuck Germany. They're Germans today. They're nationalists. They're complaining that they want parts of Czechoslovakia and Poland back. The last thing that the world needs is a larger armed Germany. They've been very good for the last 80 years, but now they're starting to get a little feisty, and that's, screw them. That's not good. That's not good, Oh, the Germans are, yeah, and my family, the Dutch always, this is in the 80s. I don't know how it is now. I remember being at the watching World Soccer in Amsterdam, and everybody was cheering for the Dutch. He says everybody here hates the Germans to this day. But this is 40 years ago. The Germans, this is 30 years after World War II, they still remembered the war, and they still hated the Germans. So maybe I got that. And then the German part of my family was actually from Alsace. Now, the Germans don't consider the Alsatians quite German enough, and the French don't consider the people of Alsace quite French enough. They're kind of this mongrelized. That's me, a mongrel. I'm a mongrel. I'm this mongrelized people that doesn't fit in anywhere, and I think that's why I identify with the Alsatians. First of all, it's a really nice place. It's not a shabby place at all. It's really it's a class act. It's very nice. It's Germany, but with the panache of the French, because the French do have style. They have panache. So it's got a high standard of living, and they're classy people, and it's clean. It's just a nice place. So I'm glad that my ancestors didn't come from some shithole slum. France is dirty. France is a nice country, and the French are they can be rude sometimes, but they're very well dressed. They're very stylish. I noticed that. They take very great pride in looking nice. Even the bum had like this cravat or something, this scarf around his neck.
This is a reminder. God is a comedian playing to an audience too afraid to laugh was said by Voltaire.
Voltaire. Yeah, this is true, actually.
This is a reminder. God is a comedian playing to an audience too afraid to laugh was said by Voltaire.
All right, I'm rambling, and I really didn't tell too much about my autobiography. I just went on a rant, and I apologize. I don't want to seem like an anti-Semite. Maybe what I'm trying to say is, this is a serious problem for Israel's PR. People look at this, and it's not like I'm being hateful because, I don't know, killing people's bad. It's the reason I hated Germans for many. I hated being German. I hated having German blood for 40 years because what the Nazis did, it was a horrible, horrible thing. I felt profoundly guilty. I don't feel that anymore. Not at all. Because at 65, I've learned my lesson. There's no particular race that's any more vicious than any other race. We're all vicious. We're all homicidal monkeys, okay? So there's no reason to make us feel guilty. Because the Jews just went from the camps to Israel and started doing the same thing that was done to them. And that's human. It's like you have a bad day at work, you go home, you slap your wife slaps the kids. It's a sad statement about humanity, but that's the way we are. We're mean. And Israel's committing genocide. And Israel is committing genocide. And it's wrong. There's no justification for it. It's not self-defense. It's not a matter of survival. The Germans did the same thing. We're just fighting for survival against the communists and everybody else. We have to do this to make our land pure, blah, blah, blah. They said the same thing. Oh, we have a right to survive. We have every right to just wipe people out. It's what we need to do to survive. Well, if that's what you need to do to survive, maybe you don't deserve to. Maybe none of us deserve to survive. Maybe Jesus should come back. But a global warming is going to wipe us out. We're too stupid to do anything about it. Um, EVs are evidently too much of a hassle, so that's out. Europe's gone completely crazy. Everywhere you go, they're electing right wing people. Macron just, are they gonna elect another Petain? Are they gonna elect Francisco Franco? What's his name? Jean Lamine, what's her? Le Pen, not Petain, but her dad was a real Nazi, and she's not quite a Nazi, but she's pretty right wing. It's ironic that a lot of these really far right candidates they love Israel now. Like what was his name? Gert Wilders in the Netherlands. He's very pro-Israel, very pro-Israel. But he's mean. He hates Muslims. He wants to put them in cattle cars and send them back. And I know they've had trouble there. My opinion about immigration in Europe was they have to be practical. That's why the Danish Social Democrats are still in power. They basically adopted the far right view of immigration. No more immigration. It's just not working. There's no way to wait. Look what it's done to Sweden. That city Malmo. It's just like hand grenade attacks on police stations. Give me a frickin' break. They've had enough. They've had enough. So, anyways, instead of talking about it, I do what I forgot to take my bupropion. I've got all these medications, and it's almost midnight, and I was supposed to take this morning, and I didn't take, and that's why you're getting this wackadoodle guy that can't hold one subject. I was supposed to talk about. I thought it would be interesting for some reason to tell the story about the time I applied for welfare in Toronto, and was just I deliberately blew it because I didn't want to go on welfare. You know, I would prefer to work even as an illegal alien. Um, and my attitude was basically, Canada's a what do you mean I can't work up here? You're the 51st state. I'll work up here. Screw you. I apologize, Canada, but that was my attitude. But I didn't live off your welfare state. I had to work. I couldn't. I tried to apply for those things, and I felt bad doing it. But I had help because people said, "Yeah, you know, you're fun. We'd rather have you here drinking with us than working all day. You know, and then you come home dirty and you're tired. And we got to make you dinner, and you know, you can make more money on unemployment. You can make more money on welfare than you can working. I don't know if that's true or not, but I worked a 40-hour week, and they took a lot of taxes out, which I never got any benefits for. And when I went to California, I tried to work too, but by then I was just too sick. I was really, really just too sick. I was physically sick, and I was emotionally sick, and I don't feel any guilt about not applying for welfare or SSI because I tried. I tried over and over again to keep work, and I just couldn't do it. Nobody would keep me because I'm just useless. I was just useless. I hate to. I got I was smart though. I mean, I got a master's degree. I did that, but I was good at talking too. I was good at market research, but I could never hold a job down. And all the drugs they had me on, lithium and Seroquel and Paxil. I wonder if that and LSD. The LSD probably didn't do any good either. So what was it? Charles Manson, was it the drugs that did it to him? Was it his abuse? I mean, he was brutally abused as a child, or did he just come into the world bad? It's right, Robert Sapolsky, who is an atheist, a Jewish from a Jewish family, but he's He's very anti. He's an atheist. He doesn't believe in free will, but he just is. I guess basically saying is the choices we make are determined by our DNA and our environment, and the environment we grew up in. But he's very anti-Zionist, and he doesn't believe in God, but he's the sweetest guy in the world, and I love him to death. And I feel bad when I go on one of my rants because and it is my fault because I'm cruel and careless with my words. But I don't mean it towards him. He doesn't feel any more affinity for Israel than I do for Germany. I don't even like going to Germany. Now, if I feel nationalism for any country, it's a country that I'm just loosely genetically. I mean, we're just I think French by accident. I mean, the borders switched. We were German speaking, and that made us French. But I always root for the French in war movies, and don't say that they run because Siege of Yorktown they helped us during the American Revolution. We would never had a country. Um, they had better tanks in World War II than the Germans did, and they had the Maginot Line. It's just they had that fifth column, and German tactics were better. The German tactics were better, and Napoleon or whatever. But I was always I never really thought a lot of the Russian Revolution, communism, even as being as left wing as I was at one time. The Russian Revolution just seemed a horrible, horrible mess, and I always identified with the French Revolution, which I think is more classically liberal or anarchistic or whatever. I just identify very strongly with the French, rightly or wrongly. So if and I was at Bastille Day, it's the 200th anniversary of the Jour de Bastille, and they have these military parade for like an hour, the tanks and jets flying over, and I thought, who the hell would be stupid enough to invade this country? It's like I guess they did it to say, hey, Germany, you want to invade now? And they've got nuclear weapons. They're a force to be reckoned with, the French. I know that some people laugh at that, but it's actually objectively true. And maybe that's proof I'm crazy because that's the ethnic group that I identify with. So maybe that does make me crazy. What was that movie? Breaking Away. He wanted to be Italian, then he wanted to be French, and he wasn't. Is that any stranger than being a man that thinks he's a woman or a woman that wants to be a man? I'm an American that thinks he's French. They're snappy dressers. I like that when they riot, they burn tires and everything. Do you hear the people singing the songs of angry men? So that's how I got hooked into the welfare state. But I worked on and off. I paid into Social Security for 40 years. How I did that, I just did. I just did. Because I always managed to hold some part-time job. Tax money was always trickling in. I always did that. I don't anymore because I can barely walk. My heart's bad, my knees bad. I am physically, I'm genuinely disabled. I genuinely cannot work. I can't even do yard work anymore. So I'm old now and I'm broken down. I'm doing the Buddhist thing to try to calm my mind down and be less angry and be less prejudiced. But the thing about the present world that seems obsessed is not the war in Ukraine or anything else. It's this little bitty, what is it, like 12 by 12? Alexa, what is the land area of Gaza?
Here is an answer from an Alexa Answers contributor that I translated. The Gaza Strip covers an area of 365 square kilometers, equivalent to 141,000 acres.
Alexa, what is the land area in square miles of Gaza?
The Gaza Strip has an area of 139 square miles.
Alexa, what is the square root of 139?
The square root of 139
13.
is approximately 11.7898.
All right, so that isn't even 12 square miles. I lived in San Francisco at 7 by 7. Alexa, what's the population of Gaza?
In 2017, the population of Gaza Strip was 1.76 million people.
And they're just slaughtering them. And then they call Hamas terror. Okay, you know what? I'm going to be honest. This isn't just being contrary to piss people off. Hamas, they're terrorists. They are. What they did was bad. But there are no good guys in this war. The IDF, and they've got less of an excuse because terrorism is a tactic used by the weak. It's all they have to fight with. They've got nothing else to fight with. The Irish Republican Army was up against the British Army. They had nothing else. I hate to say, I hate to call the Irish weak because they've big hearts, but they're brave. They weren't cowards. They kept fighting against odds, but that's why they call them terrorism. Terrorism is a desperate weapon. It's used when you've got nothing else. The Israelis have a modern army. They've got nuclear weapons, for God's sakes. They've got tanks. They've got artificial intelligence. They've got all of this tech, and yet they can't aim their bombs to Hamas. They've got to kill all this collateral damage, and they do. They deliberately target women and children, and they massacred people that were unarmed, and they just dumped them in a mass grave. How can you support that? And in order to say that it didn't happen, you're a liar. And all you can do is scream at Hamas for that one day. Israel's been at it for 8 months, slaughtering people in Gaza, and I'm sick of listening to the lies that nobody's more careful. That's a fucking lie. You're deliberately targeting civilians, and it makes me sick. And I'm crazy. I may be crazy, but I'm not stupid. I know what you're up to. I keep thinking that this is the end of my life, but I've been saying that for 20 years now. And it never ends. It just, I wake up the next morning and I'm still here. What am I here for? I had a good day today. I went swimming. I did this. Whatever this is, I did it. I went to the Cinematheque. What else did I do? I did something else. Oh, crap. I forgot. Well, I'll tell you what I forgot to do. I forgot to take my medication. I think that's why I'm feeling run down now. I was supposed to take Ozempic, and I didn't. I was supposed to take my ADHD medicine. I didn't. I forgot to take my Prozac. I didn't. I have to go down and do it now. But this is me. Namyo Horenge Ko Namaste. Alexa, play Why Buddhism is True. This is the other thing I'm doing. I'm listening to this. Alexa, play Why Buddhism is True on Audible.
Getting your selection from Audible. Resuming Why Buddhism is True.
There is a clinging to them, a possessive relationship to them. In other words, the engagement persists.
Isn't that such a calm voice?
The person fails to realize that the aggregates are not self. The person clings to emotions.
Okay, stop. Alexa, stop. If I play too much, they'll cop.
They
Alexa, stop. Alexa, play Audible War and Peace.
Getting your selection from Audible. Resuming War and Peace.
Towards evening with sky clouded over, and it began to...
Alexa, stop. That's the other thing I did today. I listened to War and Peace and why. I figure if I actually become a Buddhist and start meditating, maybe I'll be a less hateful person and I'll detach myself from all this worldly monkey shine, this vicious homicidal violence that surrounds all of us, and me too. I'm not a saint. Look at me. It's the constitutional carry. I don't have a firearm. I wouldn't have a firearm. I shouldn't have firearms. That's too much. But I just keep watching the news and I feel so threatened, like someone could just come and pick me out with nothing, like that movie Civil War. I could end up in a mass grave. I figure if I hide behind, I've got my mace. Got a taser around here. I hit it and I can't remember what I did with it. I've got this little thing. I don't even know what you call this thing. It's a sonic grenade. Ow. All right, well, that's actually painful. That might make That'd probably make a mugger more likely to mug you. But I mean, at least it might attract some attention. And then I've got this vicious, like this is gonna. That's, I'm being. Army's coming for me. What am I gonna defend myself with? It's like a 1 inch blade. I figure it's something, you know. Maybe if I can get up close enough to somebody, I can go for their jugular. It's something to defend myself with. It's not big enough to be an offensive weapon. It really isn't. This blade isn't big enough to actually hit a vital organ. But I just feel so threatened by the world. This is like a symbol. Some people wear a cross. I've got the little pocket knife just in case, or my mace. Oh, I've got this. I don't carry this around though. But this is like if someone breaks in. This is nice. This is really nice. Are you watching? This. I really love this. I feel attached to this like it's an extension. It's like a personality thing now. But look, I got the glasses. I got this. Now you watch. You watch. This is cool. It's like having a switchblade. It's legal for some reason because it's got this little nub here. Now watch. I practiced. I can do it. See how fast that is? So I got my switchblade. No guns. No guns. No firearms. None. I had a 38 Taurus, but last time when I was in getting electric shock therapy, my dad said, "We found the gun, and I'm glad that you feel better with the electric shock therapy, but as long as you're living in my house, Bill, please, no firearm. You can keep that steak knife you've got hidden in your room. How about that? That's a knife. I think I still have that steak knife. I hid it under my pillow." He says, "You can keep the steak knife." He says, "It's a nice sharp knife. I know you use it to cut up steak. I know that's your steak knife." He says, "We'll let you keep that, okay? How about that? But no firearms. Bad, Bill. Bad. You are it's like you're not a crack addict. Like this is before not Hunter Thompson, but Hunter Biden. But it's like if you went in and got this and you said that you didn't have mental problems, you fibbed. You fibbed to get your gun because." Although they do a background check, if you've got a mental problem, it should show up on a background check, and it did, but nothing does. They've got to have licensing to keep guns away from people like me, and training or whatever. They've got to make you jump through more hoops to weed out more people. I've never killed. I had a weapon that was. It wasn't supposed to be fully automatic, but it was like. It did something called slam fire. It was a little wackadoodle. I didn't deliberately. Well, maybe I did a little. Instead of firing just one bullet, it would spit out 2 or 3 bullets occasionally. But then I had to get it fixed because of the range. They said the ATF sees you with that, they'll arrest you. You could go to jail for 5 years for that. And so the next Monday, I went down to the gun exchange and I said, "Look, this thing's slam firing. It's spitting out bullets." I says, "Can you fix it?" He says, "Yeah, we don't have to confiscate it. We don't have to turn it into the ATF. We're going to take it back to the manufacturer and fix it so it's legal." I didn't see that gun for a year, but I wish I still had it. It was a Valmet M71S, and I loved that gun. It was like this switchblade. It was like an extension of my personality, and it looked so sexy and so cool. Like this is sexy and cool. But I mean. Now, see, this is the thing. You could actually kill lots of people with this if you were healthy. Me, I'm not. I can barely hold it in my hands because I have arthritis. But a normal person, a normal male, or even a female with normal dexterity, I got enough strength in my hands to do that. This blade is long enough that it could go puncture your heart. Or lungs, or your liver, or your kidney. You could kill somebody with a fork. Okay, you could kill somebody with a fork. This is a deadly weapon. This is a pocket knife. I've never walked out of the house with that, but it's legal now. It used to be that this would be considered an offense. 10, 15 years ago, this would be considered an offensive weapon. And they could arrest you for this. They've changed the law. They have constitutional carry in Ohio. And you can carry any kind of blade. You can carry brass knuckles. You can carry a 38. You don't need a permit. You don't need a permit for any of that to carry weapons around with you. For Christmas, I bought myself these. They're brass knuckles. And if you hit somebody in the face with some of these, you're going to crush bones. Again, someone comes in the house, spray them with mace and pound them with that, you know. I think I have a right to defend myself. I'm not planning on using any of these weapons in an aggressive way. And I've got no firearms, so, which makes me feel vulnerable, but I think that if there's any modicum of responsibility in my body, it's that I should not have a gun. Nothing else, I could probably end up shooting myself. Because I get dizzy sometimes, you know. But I never killed anyone. I never did the oops thing, let's put it that way. And I didn't kill my roommate, didn't kill any of my friends, never went on a mass shooting. Let's say hypothetically he was a very bad person. I think he was a pedophile too. He owed us money. But that's just never killed anyone. I'm just making that up to make this story interesting. Never killed anyone. And that's the thing with the Buddhism and giving up atheism, and giving up drugs and giving up drinking and smoking and all these things. I'm trying before I die to cleanse myself of, I guess Christianity called sin. All suffering comes from desire, and I'm trying to get rid of my desires. I'm trying to improve my karma and make myself a good person and love everybody and not hate anyone and contribute positive energy to the universe and not negative energy. So I'm just trying not to be angry, not even at soldiers in the military that are just shooting innocent women. But yeah, for the record, I mean, there are people that think Hamas are heroes. I'm not one of them. They didn't do anything heroic. They really, really didn't. None of that is heroic. American soldiers were heroes. American soldiers did rapes and killings, and they did things that were naughty. They shouldn't have done. But I would say American soldiers were, and I guess British soldiers, Canadians, especially Canadians, because Canadians freed the Netherlands, and from what I understood, the Canadians were real gentlemen. They were honorable people, the Canadians. So if you're a Canadian and you're watching this, thank you. Your grandparents were honorable soldiers, and they, from what I understand from the people I knew in the Netherlands, they said that they were really, really nice and polite, courteous. You didn't mistreat anybody in my family, and we were glad. We're still friends with the. I mean, we're there. I did that once. That's why I don't identify with the Dutch at all. I said we, and they said, "Excuse me, you know, your grandfather was from here. We are Dutch. You are an American. We may share DNA, but the culture you're from is so different than ours." And I don't know. I think it is. Yeah. You can be black, Hispanic, Jewish, Caucasian, waspy, whatever, Chinese. If you're brought up in the United States, we all share certain cultural characteristics. We're loud, we're aggressive, we're smart, but we're stupid in other ways. We're just blindly naive. We think we can solve all the world's problems. And we're all like Americans. I think why I want to be French, I don't know. Maybe that was a joke, you know, back during the Gulf War, that we hated the French, and I just decided, well, you know what? French are right about it. And they were, weren't they? The same people that were bad-mouthing the French for not wanting to get involved in Iraq, how many people that were just gung-ho war are just so disgusted that we got in a war for 20 years? These just year after year getting involved in foreign wars that we should not be getting involved in all over the world and wasting American taxpayers' money. So the French were right. And you know what? The French were in Afghanistan with us. If we need help, they'll help us. You hate to hear it, but the French are our most reliable ally. You talk to anybody in military intelligence, and they will tell you that the French will come to help us, and they can actually help us. They have aircraft carriers, they have nuclear weapons, they have the Mirage, the Assault Mirage jet fighter. They're our friends. So quit bad mouthing the French. And if you're French, I hope you don't mind that I'm delusional and I think that I'm one of you. But I mean, it's like, I guess that's why some feminists are angry at men that say, I'm a woman. No, you're not. Now I'm gonna get in real trouble. I don't hate you. If you want to have surgery, as long as you're not a kid, and remove your penis and have tits, or if you're a woman and you want a penis and you want your tits removed and hair on your face, go for it. But you're always going to be someone that was born a woman, and you're always going to be a man underneath it if you have the sex change. Women have babies, and men make sperm and wars. And women have wonderful qualities and some annoying qualities and weaknesses, and men are very, very flawed, but they're very good at building things. So, if a light bulb goes out, it's good to have a man around, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are women that are good at that too, but a lot of this gender stuff, I think I understand about mistreatment and equality, and I'm not dissing any of that. I think equal rights is something to go for, but I think this whole thing's been taken. Even the Me Too thing, which I was very sympathetic with, and I still am. I think maybe you took it a little bit too far. I mean, rape is bad, but I mean, just because a guy's hitting on you in a bar, as long as when you tell him to fuck off, he fucks off. He hasn't, that's part of the dance between men and women, biology or God or whatever, the birds and the bees. I mean, to a certain extent, we all have to put up with that just to make babies, But I know there's a limit to that. You can be too aggressive, and violence is just totally unacceptable. I agree. It's like I wish punishment was stricter for rape. Harvey is his name Harvey? Jeffrey Epstein's dead. That Gazelle woman's in prison for the rest of her life. And Harvey Weinstein, I was sick when I heard they overturned. I hope he dies in prison. He's a terrible person. Did Bernie Madoff die in prison? I think he did. People that do bad things belong in prison. It's like if you do something violent, it's like, oh, well, we've got too many people locked up. Well, we see what happens when we don't lock up bad people. The homicide rate doubles, with the whole defund the police thing. Even a bad, and police forces should be good. The police brutality is wrong. We should try to weed out the bad eggs. But even a bad police force, and police forces shouldn't be bad. They should be good. But even a bad police force is better than no police force at all. Just imagine what an urban area would be like with no cops. Street gangs would take over. And do you think they're gonna respect your civil rights? Come on, man. Ended up talking about that. But the other day it's funny, I was just woke. I guess I had a dream. I was sitting in that welfare office in San Francisco and in Toronto. It's like, and just thinking, this is the lowest I could ever get to be here. It's just a horrible feeling. And I'm sure people do take advantage of the system, and some people don't care. But I remember thinking that this is the lowest a person can actually get. This is so humiliating to be here in this office. And they don't treat you nicely. They deliberately dehumanize you. And to a certain extent, this is going to sound terrible, but I understood why they did it to me, and I was angry. Part of me was angry, and part of me realized they have to do this. They can't be nice. If they be nice about this, it's like the border. They got to be mean to people. Of course, everybody would like to come across the border into the United States, but if you do, you're going to swamp the system. If you let everybody on welfare, the whole system collapses because someone's got to pay for that, and the people that are working goes, well, why the fuck don't I go on welfare too? I'm paying taxes so this asshole can stay at home and watch Netflix. Well, we didn't have Netflix back then when we had cable. We had MTV. We're gonna put this guy on welfare so he can sit in front of a television set and watch MTV and oogle over Martha Quinn while he's smoking a joint? Of course you're going to be angry about that. And you have every right to be. But in my case, I'm just telling you, I tried so hard. It was really, and that was why it was humiliating. I just felt like such a loser. It's like, I've lost at life. I've got to be here. I don't want to be here. I'd rather be working. I'd rather be at school, but I can't make enough to go to school. I need help. I'm not an independent person. And it was so horrible. I thought it was over for me. But I think the one thing I'm proud of myself is here it is 45, almost 50 years later, and I'm still standing. Still standing.